Hi, everyone. Good morning. Today is Sunday, the 11th of January, 2015. I'm Anna Koyman. Right to this Fox News alert. Up to 1 million people packing the streets of Paris, standing up against terror. World leaders just getting to the scene as the rally kicks off right now. And Rick Leventhal is there live on the ground. Rick, this is the first time we've been able to catch up with you this morning. Give us your thoughts on what's going on and give us the sights and sounds. Set the scene.
It is an incredible scene here at one of the main squares in downtown Paris and Center City, the Place de la République. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. Difficult to put a number on this crowd around us, but I can tell you the square is completely packed. Every street and avenue in every direction is completely full of people, and it is a jubilant atmosphere in the crowd, a lot of chanting, a lot of clapping. Je suis Charlie, we are Charlie, in honor of the people who were killed, the 12 who were killed at Charlie Hebdo, a satirical newspaper. They were chanting Merci à la police, thank you police, earlier, which is obviously something you would not necessarily hear very often in the United States, but it's certainly being chanted here. This whole rally, this unity march and mass demonstration, an anti-terror rally. It's being led by the French President, François Hollande, also family members of the 17 victims that were killed in the multiple terror attacks this week. And as you mentioned, up to 1 million people are expected, and that number could very well have already been reached. Again, the streets are completely packed. The squares are completely packed. There are dozens of world leaders expected here today, including the German Chancellor, Prime Ministers of Italy, Turkey, Israel, Jordan's King and Queen, Spain is here. It just goes on and on. And again, the goal here is to show that the people stand with authorities, the people stand against terrorism, renewing and strengthening their efforts to defeat radical Islamics and anyone who would strike terror here in Paris, in France, or across Europe. As you can imagine, safety and security is a primary concern because of the size of this crowd and because of the string of attacks through this city this week. So there are thousands of police and soldiers and security personnel on hand, military units, quick intervention teams like SWAT teams. There are plainclothes police in the crowd, a couple dozen anti-criminal crews who are looking for potential threats. There are sharpshooters on rooftops. They're paying attention to high vantage points and sewers as well. Dozens of motorcycle crews, similar to the efforts that we saw in Times Square on New Year's Eve, but on this, a very similar and very large scale, but unprecedented, I'm told, here in Paris.
And Rick, Clayton here, we've been reporting earlier this morning that, of course, the police there have been told to remove their social media profiles, basically going unmarked so that they are not being pinpointed by threats in the crowd. Obviously, security, as you mentioned, a huge concern this morning. Have you managed to talk to any different security personnel or any police and any of the concerns they've had this morning? Has it been mostly peaceful?
Well, this has been incredibly peaceful. There's been no sign of any trouble anywhere that we have seen, and what we're seeing is this chanting, this cheering, the clapping, the waving of flags and signs, and just a general sense of joy, which is remarkable considering how awful things have been here. The police are obviously very serious, and they are not in a talkative mood. There are many officers and soldiers in uniform, but again, also many undercover as well. And of course, they are watching their backs and being very careful because they have been targeted, and there are concerns that they will be targeted again.
So, Rick, it's being billed as a rally for unity. Looking out at the people attending it, is it a cross-section, would you say, of French society? Do you see a lot of, obviously, of Muslims there?
Yeah, excellent question, and something I meant to mention. It is absolutely a cross-section. Young, old, all races, appear to be all religions represented here, and we can maybe be able to hear just sort of a rolling wave, almost like the wave you see at a football game. We've had these over and over again, these rolling waves of clapping through the crowd, just applause. It's pretty remarkable, and it is a cross section. It is a true representation of the people of France and the people of Europe, and it's a terrific show of support and unity here in the center of Paris today.
Yeah, that's great to hear that it is a cross-section. Even Muslims who live in France are coming out in unity as well. And we're beginning to hear more of this from leaders. The president of Egypt condemning Muslim extremism, the French prime minister saying we are at war with radical Islam. But that's not something that we're hearing from the White House. There's a White House summit on countering violent extremism. There's a panel discussion that's going to be going on. We just got a press release about it this morning. And the word Islam and Muslim is not mentioned at all. From your sources that you've been talking to about this rally, is that a point of concern for them?
I don't know if U.S. politics figures into the French politics at this stage. I can tell you that there's no question on this end that this is being called terrorism, that these are and were terrorist action, and everyone here knows it. And they're doing what they can to try and prevent a similar act from happening in the future. But there is a very large Muslim population in France, the largest in Europe, and there's certainly a small percentage of that that is considered radicalized. And many of them, some 1,200 or more, have left France to go fight with ISIS. And there are some of them who have returned home. And as we know, there are at least a couple of terrorists who fought and are trained in Yemen who carried out those attacks at the newspaper earlier this week. So, there is an issue, an ongoing issue here. There's been a lot of talk about how they can best address the issue of radicalized citizens of France who may leave and return to sow more terror on their homeland. And they're obviously aware of it, and they're trying to combat it. And they had a 2-hour meeting, French government leaders, yesterday to try and determine ways they might do a better job. But what we're seeing here today is just a show from the public that they support the government, they support the police, and they support efforts to try and rid this society of terrorism. Whether it works or not is another story.
Right. So is anybody in France right now, it's hard to tell from here, talking about immigration, which it strikes me maybe played a role in all of this? Is that part of the public discussion?
I got to apologize. It's pretty loud here, so I didn't catch the question.
I'm sorry. The question was simply, is anybody in France in a public way, in some sort of legitimate public forum, talking about immigration, which at least from this vantage seems like it may have played some role in all of this?
What I can tell you is that there is a grave concern across Paris and across the country that they are at risk. They know that there is a radical element, and that radical element is not happy with French society. It's free press, it's permissive ways, and they've made that clear. And what the people of France are saying is, we don't care, we're standing up to it, we're going to continue to publish satirical cartoons, and we're continuing to speak our mind, and we're going to show our strength in numbers, which is what they're doing here today.
Rick Leventhal live for us this afternoon there in Paris, where it's after 3 in the afternoon, where the rally, anti-terrorism rally, has unfolded with millions pouring in the street. Our thanks, Rick.